All right, welcome to Talk-Jitsu episode 9 with Boogie Mike, Joey Boretski, and me, Jordan Preisinger from Jordan Teaches Jiujitsu. Today we have a great episode for you guys. We're going to talk about jiu-jitsu sayings and adages that people don't like. So we're going to react to a Reddit thread. I've always found that really fun and interesting to keep things within the same realm of topic, but also be able to talk about different topics at the same time. So yeah, that's something I really like about doing this kind of stuff. So let's just not much has happened in our days or our week that's super interesting to the audience, you guys. So we'll just jump right into it. So
what is the name of this thread, Jordan? Is it things that people don't like to hear? Or?
Yeah, what is a jiu-jitsu adage or saying that you don't like? So yeah, just things people say in jiu-jitsu that people don't really agree with. They're common sayings like, yeah, do this, do that. Let's see. So let's start off with this comment from How Do I Get Better? This person's saying, when the question is, how do I get better? And the answer is just go to class. And they're saying everyone should have an idea of what they're actively working on. They can research, watch videos, ask their coach, but every day focus on improving that area. So I do agree with that because, people can say, how do I get better? Just keep showing up. But that isn't the optimal way to get better. But I also think that it's also very true that you will get better just by showing up too. I think that both things can be true. Like for me, at least, what I think, it's like, just say you were like, let's take chess, for example. Just say you're going to a chess class every single week for 10 years. You're going to get good at chess. It's just going to happen. But are you going to be as good at chess as someone that studies outside of their chess class, practices, thinks about it all the time? Probably not as good, but you're going to be way better than someone that didn't go to chess class every week for 10 years. So yeah, I agree that it can be like a bit of a cop-out just saying just show up, but it's also true. So yeah, what do you think, Joey, on that?
Yeah, I mean, like, just show up is kind of right. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a student not get better from coming to class, like regularly coming to classes for a given amount of time. Like, I've never seen that happen. Like, someone who comes for 2 years is as bad as the day they started. Doesn't typically happen, but you're right. Like, it's not a surprise that the people who improve the fastest and make the biggest like leaps in their game are the people who are like staying late after class, asking questions, watching videos on their own time. Like, the more effort you put in to getting better at an activity, the better you're going to get at the activity. But just doing it is going to make you better.
Exactly. So maybe it's not like the most optimal, best strategy, but I think it's pretty obvious. It's for anything in life, the more effort you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. I mean, there's so many examples like school. You show up to school, you're going to get, you're going to learn stuff, but are you going to learn as much and, benefit as much as like actually doing your homework and your projects and everything that's asked of you? That kind of stuff helps. That's why the kids that do that stuff do well in school and they get good jobs after, it's pretty clear, pretty obvious. For you, Mike, what's your opinion on this?
I think it depends if you're a competitor or just an everyday regular guy that likes, or guy or gal that likes to go to do jiu-jitsu. If you're a competitor, just show up is the basic minimum requirements. That you have to go to maybe get private lessons from your coach, research outside of class and things like that. But for the average Joe that just goes, I think just showing up is fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that there is such an issue in jiu-jitsu differentiating hobbyist from competitor, and there are hobbyist competitors and there's also competitors that are hobbyists. There's like both. Like you can treat jiu-jitsu as like take it very serious as a competitor and not compete, and you can also compete and not take it very serious and be more recreational. But the demands for both different groups are so different, right? So a competitor, someone in that realm I would give them such different advice from someone just wants to get decently good at jiu-jitsu and have a good time. Like, yeah, just showing up you'll get good at jiu-jitsu. It's not like a super hot take, right? Do something for 10 years, you're going to get decent at it. So this person's saying when people say jiu-jitsu is for everyone, they say no, it's not for everyone, it's for anyone, not everyone. I guess that that's true. I think that is a good way of putting it. Definitely anyone can do it. Like if you have injuries or maybe you're not the most athletic or whatever it is. I mean, there's still things you can do to work around it and still do jiu-jitsu. But in the sense, is it for everyone? Is everyone going to enjoy it? Probably not, but I would say most people would if they give it a chance. I think a lot of people just don't want to give it a chance because, you know, they're either just too nervous or they think they won't like it. And maybe some people do give it a chance, but they don't give it their best chance, right? So maybe they try class and they're just too kind of hesitant to really get fully into it, you know, and just let themselves kind of relax and enjoy it. So I think that can happen. But yeah, I think most people would enjoy it if they gave it their best shot. But yeah, what do you think, Mike?
I'd agree with that. I think that some people, well, the chance of you getting hurt in jiu-jitsu over a length of time is about 100%, whether it's a minor injury or a major injury. You might sprain your toe, but some people just don't even like the fact that they may get hurt. You know, so it might not be for everybody, but
yeah. But the thing is, when people are super worried about getting hurt, it's like, well, you should also be worried about sitting on the couch watching Netflix doing nothing, right? So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to do damage to your, you know, your ligaments and stuff, but it's going to do more damage to your organs. So it's like, you know, do we want to make our bodies healthier from the inside out overall and risk, you know, certain things getting injured? I'll take that risk because if you don't, you know, if you use your body, it's going to take damage. If you don't use your body, you're going to take damage. It's just, you know, that's the way our bodies work. So yeah, it's like when people kind of over stress about the injury factor, yeah, you don't see people stressing too much about, you know, a sedentary lifestyle. So I think, you know, both have their pros and cons, dangers and risks. And I'll take doing jiu-jitsu all day. And I think if you practice, you know, train smart, you can stay safe for a long time. What are your thoughts on it, Joey?
I actually really like this guy's point that jiu-jitsu is for anybody. Like anyone can do it pretty much. Like, I mean, I think there's a blind grappler out of New Zealand or something who just won a tournament and got his black belt. He's quite talented, but
yeah,
you know, you see people with disabilities doing jiu-jitsu, but it's definitely not for everyone. I mean, I wish it was. Like, I would love that. I would love to be able to teach everybody, but I don't think anything is for everybody. I mean, it takes a lot of different people to make the world work, and there's just people who aren't going to be interested in like sport in general, or like especially a physical contact sport like jiu-jitsu. Like, you know, people could say like, oh, soccer is for everybody, but like, I don't like playing soccer. I don't enjoy it. It's not that I can't play it. Like, anybody could probably play it. I just don't enjoy it. So like, I actually really agree with this point. I know a lot of people think it's probably like a really small, silly distinction, but it is kind of important.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, there are a lot of older people that do jiu-jitsu. It's pretty cool to see, like, you know, in their 70s or 80s. But is it like, can every 70 and 80-year-old do jiu-jitsu safely? I would think that there's quite a few that can't. So, you know, because not everyone takes care of their bodies. There's 70-year-olds with their body in better condition than 40-year-olds, and vice versa. There's people, you know, it's just like you need to take care of your body. So if you put yourself in a position where, or maybe it's not intentional to, maybe something happened to you where, you know, you can't physically do jiu-jitsu. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. So I find this comment from this Redditor pretty interesting, and I'm interested in your takes on it. So I'll let you guys answer first, but he's saying the idea that stand-up is about only learning a takedown. It's like someone in BJJ only watching to learn an armbar and then thinking now they have a ground game. So what's your take on this, Joey?
I'm just a little confused. I mean, I don't think most people in jiu-jitsu would say that learning one takedown is learning stand-up. I think most people in jiu-jitsu are pretty aware that, like, when it comes to like actual like combat, stand-up encompasses a lot more than just a singular takedown. I think people just don't care. Like, I know most people I talk to, if you said like stand-up fighting, they would be like, oh, like striking, or like, you know, like a complete wrestling game. And I don't think most people in jiu-jitsu just care enough to add that in. I'm just really confused. I've never heard this statement. It's very strange.
Yeah, I never heard it either, and nor do I think that there needs to be like a distinction about it, because it's clear the objective in wrestling is to get the takedown. I mean, and get the pin too, but when we're talking from a jiu-jitsu context, we're talking about, we're wanting the takedown portion of it. And of course, you know, like there's more aspects of it, like the hand fighting and the grip, the hand fighting and the footwork, but those are things that are talked about and understood. I don't think there's any, you know, there's nothing kind of that people don't know. People know this, so I don't really get this guy's point. I think it's a little strange. And a lot of people are kind of, saying the same kind of thing, and a lot of comments on it, but it's like, who says this, and is even a big deal even worth talking about? Right. Like, that was kind of strange. I'm
just starting to get into the stand-up portion of jiu-jitsu, so I really don't have much to weigh in on that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of stand-up. This is a drill I really like, and I want to mention it on the podcast because maybe people can tell their coach, or maybe there's coaches that are listening, but this is a really cool drill what you can do. So, because the most dangerous thing in takedowns is actually finishing them. I don't think that the entries themselves are too risky for the most part. So we do this drill where if you touch the person's ankle, it's 3 jumping jacks. And if you grab a single, it's 5 jumping jacks. You don't finish the single, you just grab it. Or like a body lock is 10 jumping jacks. And then sometimes we'll add in things like front headlock. That's another 10 jumping jacks. So it's like more of a game. You're trying to get these things on the people, and they all mimic actual takedowns. But instead of, working for the finish itself and having all these different variables, the target's very specific. And, people that would normally be too afraid to shoot for a single or shoot for a takedown of any kind, get to experience this and practice these valuable skills. And then once you become competent, it's like, now I know how to shoot for takedowns. Well, now I can start learning how to finish takedowns and really, implement into my game more, because likely I would think, that's the most important aspect of takedowns is the entry more so than the finish itself. So it's a great way to practice entries safely. And it's a lot of fun too. I know everyone at the gym, including Mike, is always like out of breath after. And I'm just like, so we'll do that and I'll show the technique and everyone's like dying. That's like a great warm up too, because it's something you can do slow to start, to warm up. You don't need to go balls to the wall. You can go, pretty light and then kind of up the intensity. So yeah, I think it's a great way to warm up and just a really cool drill. Do you have any cool like wrestling drills, Joey, that maybe the audience would be interested in hearing about, or do you have any?
I wish I did. I don't do nearly as much wrestling as I probably should. I think I actually really like the drill you suggested there, because like you said, the entry is the hardest part to most takedowns. And honestly, once you've entered into a takedown correctly, like once you've got a single leg picked up and controlled correctly, the finish isn't really hard to figure out. Like most takedowns, the finish is pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of getting to that point. So if you can get there without like having to actually finish it, you can really practice these things without the risk of the injury. So I kind of like that. I might try that, but I don't have any other drills that I use.
No, you should definitely do that, because it's easy too. Like a brand new person, it can be their first class, and it's not like super, confusing for them as a concept to understand. Grab the leg, 5 jumping jacks, grab behind them, 10 jumping jacks, touch their ankle, 3. So it's super easy that way. Yeah, I really agree with you when you say that the finishes themselves aren't that hard to figure out, because if you grab a body lock on someone, you don't need to be like a high level wrestler to figure out how to take someone down from there. At least in my opinion, I think it's pretty straightforward. Lift them up, pull them down, figure out a way to get them down to the ground. It's the entries that are more intricate than the finishes. Usually the finishes require, I don't think they require a ton of technicality. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, 100% require technicality, but it's almost like it's more instinctual than the entries, which are way more technical and like the hand fighting, footwork and stuff like that. So just something I thought was pretty interesting.
I used to be terrified of the wrestling aspect of jiu-jitsu, and it's like exposure therapy for me. I remember telling you many times, I'm terrified of the takedowns, and that's what has stopped me from going to many tournaments is the stand-up portion of jiu-jitsu. And this is really starting to break down that wall for me. And I feel way more comfortable now. So I know the next tournament I do, what to expect, and possibly hit a cool takedown at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Another drill we do is like wall wrestling, just very similar to MMA.
Kills me.
Yeah, that one is very tiring. So it's like, King of the Hill, but on the wall. So the way it works is, the king is on the wall. The person in line the challenger is trying to take them down. If they take them down, then they're the new king. And the former king goes to the back of the line. And, Yeah, this is a really good drill, because when you factor in the wall, it just creates, or it prevents so many opportunities for things to go wrong, for injuries and stuff like that. Like the wall really controls things, and everything is the exact same. You still need to, get inside position to shoot for the hips. You still need to deal with underhooks. You need to, circle them in, pummel them in. You just learn how to physically handle somebody that way, but you don't have the same risk of being in the open kind of space where things can go much more wrong, right? So I think like those two drills themselves can really teach people how to wrestle pretty well. So like, because again, you get the entries for like a safe way to enter, and then you go in the open, then you have a safe way to enter and finish on the wall. So yeah, I really like that one. That's one we used a lot in, in like MMA practice back in the day, but now I've been using it in the jiu-jitsu practice too. But yeah, that's definitely how I got good, like takedowns in wrestling was doing, or in MMA was doing stuff like that. And I feel very competent on the wall.
I don't think it's controversial to say that wrestlers are probably some of the best conditioned athletes in combat sports.
Yeah, not controversial. And also, yeah, it's 100% true. And they're not just the best conditioned, but they're the hardest working. And like wrestling's the hardest sport and probably the most useful sport for self-defense. This is a big can of worms. We could talk about wrestling, but for sure, like it just can't be disputed, like how hard a wrestler works in the wrestling room compared to the average jiu-jitsu person in the jiu-jitsu room, which I think a lot of that is separating hobbyists from competitors. I think that's again, it kind of falls into that. But even the competitors themselves, it's like you just can't match the wrestling intensity and hard work aspect of wrestling. It's like in wrestling and MMA, similar in this sense too. It's like you're there to train hard and nothing else matters. You just train hard and listen. But in jiu-jitsu, feelings matter more, and all this stuff, which is important for sure. But I like both. I like being like a smart, good gym that takes care of everyone for sure. But I also like let's grind hard, let's train hard. Like we're all in this to be the best. Let's go. So I like that aspect of wrestling, which jiu-jitsu doesn't always have as much. They're different sports. So this person is saying when people say the only cardio you need is jiu-jitsu, they're saying if you're already an elite athlete or having control of the practice, sure, but anyone coming up needs strength and conditioning to break past a regional level. And then let's read this other person's comment too, kind of a rebuttal to them. They're saying to break past a regional level suggests a competitive goal way beyond what 90% of students wish to achieve. For the hobbyist who dominates the art, jiu-jitsu is definitely enough cardio. Case in point, I started jiu-jitsu at 142 pounds and a wrestling heart rate of 89 beats per minute. And in 3 years, I was 165 pounds and 56 beats per minute. I have no interest in tournaments. I've done a few, and I'm quite happy with the equilibrium I've reached with jiu-jitsu alone. So yeah, I 100% agree with the second commenter. If you want to do jiu-jitsu at an elite level competitively, rolling is not enough for cardio. That's 100% true. You need to do real, high intensity training, build up your aerobic base, all sorts of lift, all sorts of things that are hard to do to prepare. But if you're just a recreational person and your cardio isn't great, you can't last every single round in the gym, your time might not be best spent doing things outside of jiu-jitsu. It might be best spent just doing more rounds of jiu-jitsu for many reasons. One, it does build up your cardio, not to elite levels, but it does build up your cardio. And two, it makes you more efficient in your movements. I mean, I can tell you the difference in how much calories I burnt from when I started to how much calories I burn now is like night and day difference. I used to have to try and work way harder than I do now. And as you become a black belt, you're just way more efficient, and you can kind of, if things start to go bad, you can just relax and figure it out. You don't need to like be explosive as much and, spam explosive movements, because you have the technicality. So, I think it definitely depends. But what are your guys' thoughts on this?
Joe?
I think this is like, really interesting. Because like one thing I found is like I've rolled with a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, like I run marathons like every few months or whatever. And then you roll with them and they're exhausted halfway through the round. And me who like, I don't think I've run more than like 5 meters in the last probably like 10 years. I just don't run. I hate it. I don't do cardio outside of jiu-jitsu. I just walk is like the most intense cardio I do. But I think you really nailed it when you say, like, for people who aren't trying to be elite athletes, they just want to be able to roll a little bit longer, a little bit better in the gym. I don't think cardio is the issue for most people. I think it's efficiency. Like, I don't have better cardio than someone who runs a marathon, but when they're doing an activity really inefficiently and I'm doing it very efficiently, I'm going to appear to have better cardio than I do because I'm not wasting energy where I don't need to waste it. Whereas, you know, like you roll with a lot of like, and I don't mean to throw people under the bus here, but like white or early blue belts, especially in the gi, and you feel like every grip they take, like you could feel their forearm just like clenched as tight as it can go. And it's like every second you're doing that, you're wasting energy. Like if I have a grip, I'm not putting a lot of force on that grip unless I absolutely need to at the moment. Like if you're not resisting my grip, you're just leaving it there. My hand's just kind of there holding on. Now, when you try and break it, I'll clench and hold tight, or when I'm trying to pull you, but like just finding those places where you don't need to waste your strength.
Support for Talk-Jitsu is brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code JTJ at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 14 million balls. So what's your experience been with Manscaped?
Well, I've used probably a half a dozen different name brand products before, and they're terrible. I've cut myself every time, and these are very expensive, very well-named brand products. And with Manscaped, I've never cut myself.
Exactly. And you know what I like the most about the Manscaped razor is it has a flashlight on it. And you think
that's the best.
It's amazing. You think that, oh, it's just this like, you know, feature, whatever, but actually it's kind of like, when you experience a light on your razor, it makes you wonder why no other ones have that too, because this is a game changer. You can just see everything so much easier, you know, even if you don't have the perfect lighting. So that was my favorite aspect of it. I was actually shocked how much better it made too, because I was, you know, doing my neckline and everything. I was like, oh, I can actually see where the line should be, right? Because there's a light. It's so simple and so smart. So I really like that from Manscaped.
100%. I thought, is this a gimmick? And then I tried it. I was like, no, this is the way. This is the only razor I've ever had that has a light on it, and it really lights the way to shaving your balls.
It does. It makes all the difference. I think a lot of other brands are maybe more towards like your hair or just your beard or something, right? But this is like the full package. So guys, JTJ at checkout, let's go. You know, a white belt asked me yesterday, they're like, because we're doing the lasso sweep, and they're like, I can't bicep slicer, right? In the tournament, it's illegal, right? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, why? I'm like, I don't know. Like, why is it illegal? How much pressure can you put on someone's bicep with a bicep slicer compared to an armbar where you're breaking their elbow? I would argue that the bicep slicer is infinitely safer, especially because you feel so much pain before anything can even break. It can't, like, you can definitely break something or like a bone or possibly a muscle, right? But you're going to feel a lot of pain and have a lot of time to tap before that happens. In most cases, like it's not a slow submission people can really put on, as opposed to like someone exploding into an armbar or something. So yeah, we could talk about the rules. That could be its own, its own like podcast for sure, because it is so interesting.
I have a question. I know that ADCC goes over the rule set every now and then. Excuse me. Does IBJJF ever go over the rule set and update? I mean, other than like adding the heel hooks for brown and black last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, every few years they definitely like go through and change little things. I know like the 50-50 rules for like what constitutes a sweep and an advantage in points has been changed like 5 or 6 times. It's really confusing as someone who's taken IBJJF ref courses, and then a year later the rules are different and you're trying to like, wait, what changed? I'm not sure, but they do update them relatively regularly. Probably not as much as they should, but they do go through and update them.
But I mean, like a major change, like adding the reap and the heel hook, that was a pretty major thing they did. Right?
Yeah.
Has anything like that ever happened before in the past where they've added slicers to lower belts or things of that nature?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, I would say the biggest impact on the rules they made before that was probably when they implemented the double guard pull rule. And maybe, Joe, you can clarify better than I can. But so basically, back in the day, people were doing double guard pulls. It was really boring. So what they did was whoever comes up first within the 30 seconds gets 2 points for a sweep, and if neither do within 30 seconds, then both get a penalty. Is that how it goes?
Yeah. Yeah. So like now if both people sit to guard at the same time, someone has to come up on top to get the points. And if you don't, it's penalties for both, and the ref will stand you back up. But like what Jordan mentioned, in the old days, you used to see two people double guard pull. And because it was just an advantage to come up from the double guard pull back then, people just wouldn't do it. And there was no penalty for it. So you just end up with a match where both people pull and sit and no one ever comes on top. So I actually really think that was a good change. I like that change.
Yeah. Like I'm making a YouTube video. It'll probably be out by the time people watch it. But I mentioned that in it, how it's because it's like the most hated techniques in jiu-jitsu. So like double guard pull is even more hated than the single guard pull, right? So I cover that there. And yeah, it's like I'm glad they implemented that, because I remember in like 2013-ish, around there, when I was kind of beginning in jiu-jitsu, that's what everyone did. They just double guard pull. They try to berimbolo each other. And even at the time, my white belt self was thinking like, where's jiu-jitsu heading? Like, I don't want to have to like do this stuff to win. Like, I'd rather do like more quote unquote real jiu-jitsu. And it was kind of frustrating me. It's like, yeah, I don't want to have to like just do what everyone else does and do berimbolos and double guard pull. But one thing I think is really interesting is that, you know, when people are doing something or everyone's doing one thing, often it is better to take your own path and do something else. So I think one thing that's interesting within like the jiu-jitsu meta, you know, it's always changing all the time. So it's hard to take the meta of jiu-jitsu, what's happening like right now, or right now, you know, a year ago, or right now 2 years ago, or right now, you know, a year from now when it is the present. Like, it's hard to take all that like super serious as that's the way jiu-jitsu is supposed to be, because I feel like right now sometimes people interpret like the meta within like competitive jiu-jitsu as like, you know, what everyone else should be doing too. So if like Gordon Ryan is doing something like body lock passing, it's like that's what everyone should get on right now. That's the best stuff. But you know, Gordon Ryan could do well with like any style of passing, and then you know, trying to trick people in a sense to thinking that that's the best, but it's because he's the best doing it, right? So I think people should take the meta within jiu-jitsu always with a grain of salt, because everything changes so fast in jiu-jitsu. And, you know, we've been around a long time, Joey, so we've seen all this stuff, but it's so many lower belts that are just, they haven't experienced this. So like it's a new technique comes in, like what's it called? From Side Control, the buggy choke. Yeah. People hate that. Right. And I see people on Reddit just like, or just talking in real life, just like talking mad shit about it. They're like, oh, this is the worst thing for the sport, whatever. It's like, guys, this is like a fad right now, and it'll go away in the sense that not everyone's going to be doing it. But now it's going to be a tool in the toolkit, which is awesome. To have more tools available to us is just always awesome. So it was the same thing with the berimbolo. I use the berimbolo from time to time, but I don't, you know, have my whole game based around it, which 100% is what people did back in the day in like 2013. And, you know, I'm glad I didn't do that, because yeah, why would I want to limit myself to the meta of 2013, right? So it's the same thing now. For anyone listening, you know, maybe they want to specialize in whatever the meta is right now, which I think probably is kind of going away from leg locks even, and is more like pressure, like mount and cook people. Well, maybe that won't be the best, you know, game plan in 5 years from now. Gordon's going to be doing something else. So, yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. That's a little rant from me. But yeah, we'll do this next one. So this person's saying, maybe not an adage, but I hate how people, I hate how everyone loves telling everyone how much they suck. Like, we get it. If you compare yourself to the top elite, we all suck. But to me, it comes off as fake humility, because they're afraid that a higher belt might come along and say they're wrong or something. It's okay to be good and be confident about your jiu-jitsu. So, man, I 100% agree with this. I think people are way too self-depreciating about their jiu-jitsu. Because realistically, I mean, most people are pretty good at jiu-jitsu compared to the rest of the population, which, you know, aren't very good because they don't train. So, you know, most people that do jiu-jitsu could take a brand new person pretty easily. And the differences between them and, you know, other people you probably aren't going to be super vast unless they're like world champions or way belt levels ahead of them. It's like two blue belts. They should be pretty similar, you know, in skill and whatnot. So, you know, I don't think people should be so, self-depreciating. And I think there's nothing wrong with admitting you're good at something too. It's like, I feel like people try to give me a hard time too, for like, people either say I'm humble or they say I'm cocky because if they ever heard me say like, I'm good at something or whatever, it's like, some people don't like that, but I think there's nothing wrong with, if you are good at something, to admit it. Like, why is it cocky to say I'm good at jiu-jitsu? That's what I do for a living. I've done this for a living for years. I made my whole life around it, studied it for like the last 10 years of my life. Like, why is it cocky to say I'm good at jiu-jitsu? I'm not saying I'm the best in the world, but yeah, I think like it goes both ways. Like, people shouldn't say how garbage they are, and people shouldn't be a problem to say, yeah, I'm pretty good at jiu-jitsu. It's like not the end of the world. Mike, what are your experience with this?
I'm guilty of this. I'm self-deprecating, but I'm not doing it to get a compliment from somebody. I do it because I genuinely believe that. It's just the way I am with my anxiety and, BDD and stuff like that. Just like if I take off my shirt and look in the mirror, I think I look disgusting when somebody else might say you're in decent shape for your age. It's the same with jiu-jitsu. I think I'm, most of the time I think I'm terrible, and it's just me with depression and anxiety getting at me. But, I know I'm decent. I can keep up with people half my age, so I know I'm okay at it. But to me, yeah, I always say that I suck. And I know it's annoying to people, but hey.
Well, I wouldn't say it's annoying to people, but I'm sure there are just people out there like me too. It's like, no, you're good. You don't need to say that, because you are good, Mike. And
Thank you.
Yeah, you are. So nothing wrong with that. And I think it's so interesting too. People can experience mental issues so differently because, I experienced some depression, anxiety too, just like you do, Mike. But that kind of thing I never experienced it that way. Like from like day one, white belt or whatever, I'm thinking I'm going to be the best. I'm going to beat all you guys that can beat me. Give me a couple of years and there's no chance. Like that's like I guess I can have a cocky mentality at times, right? But it's also just self-belief. If you believe you can do something, I don't think that's cocky either. So yeah, I never had that issue where I thought I was bad or, had that self-depreciating, but I think we have such different personalities that way. I think that really contributes to it, but
yeah, I wish I had more of that outlook.
Yeah.
I really do.
I wish I had a little bit less just because like, man, it's like hard to, because I see any like opportunity. I think I can do that. I've talked on the podcast before. It's like, I think, Prime Minister, I can do that. I can become prime. Well, because why can't I? You know what I mean? Why can't you do what you want to do? Everyone that's achieved something that you want to achieve, is just a normal person, right? They figured out a way to do it. So every single thing that I want and I want to achieve, I don't see it as not possible. I see it as possible. So yeah, I think that's a good mentality. Besides people, they give me a hard time about it. But Joey, what's your, I think you've been, you got that I'm okay at jiu-jitsu shirt, even a little self-depreciating, but I'm sure you recognize too that you've got, quite good skills for a black belt.
Yeah. I mean, like I think a lot of it comes down to like what you're comparing yourself to. Like if I compare myself to like Gordon Ryan or like the Rutola brothers, like, no, I probably suck compared to them. I'm sure they'd beat the hell out of me. But if you give me most like outside of like world champion, like purple belts or below, I'll probably beat them pretty handily. Like I'm not bad. It's just, I think what happens a lot of the time too is, especially people who compete, you compare yourself to the best or like the guys that you want to compete against. And like in that regard, like, no, I don't think I'm good. I don't think I'm ever going to win a world championship, but for like a local level, I think I'm a pretty good black belt. So I think a lot of it just comes down to what you compare yourself to. And I think it's harder with jiu-jitsu because I think maybe just because the pros are just, maybe they seem more like everyday people. Like you wouldn't compare yourself if you're a guy who plays like adult rec league hockey to like the best guys in the NHL because they're so far removed from you. You don't even practice with them. You don't even get to look at them. You have to pay to go watch them. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, there can be a pro guy on the mat in your class. Like you could pay enough money and just go compete against, some of the best guys in the world in the IBJJF tournaments. Like you can do that as a regular guy. So people tend to compare themselves to that because it's accessible. Whereas in like no other sport, like you can't pay money and then just go compete in like the world tennis championships or something. Like you have to qualify for these things. And for most people, that's just never going to happen. So you don't even bother comparing yourself to them.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is what it is a lot, just like comparison for no reason. And like you said, other sports for the most part aren't really like this. It's like jiu-jitsu has this like kind of problem where people really compare themselves to, high level competitors, or even, just anyone, people in their gym, and they start feeling down. Oh, this person started a similar time than I did, but they're better than me or whatever. It's like, yeah, comparison is a thief of joy. So, I've said it for a long time. It's like, if you only want to do this recreational, which is 100% fine, don't be hard on yourself. Don't compare yourself to others. There's just no value in it. If you want to be the absolute best, then take that mentality. I think that is the only time it can call for it. And even then, sometimes it can be a negative aspect to it. So, like I said, everyone just have a good time training jiu-jitsu, and you'll have a better time training jiu-jitsu if you have that mentality. So this person's saying when people say a blue belt could handle themselves against 99% of untrained people in the streets. So basically what they're saying is that if you're a blue belt, you can handle the majority of people on the streets fighting, right? So this is my take on this. This is, maybe that's true in the sense that you might be able to beat 99% of the people out there, but you're not going to be able to beat 99% of the people out there that want to fight you, because the percentage of the people that want to fight you are probably people that, have been in fights before, have some, danger to them, and aren't just like some 90-year-old granny. Because if we're saying 99% of people out there, we have to include everyone. So kids, old people, people with, handicap or diseases, whatever it is, we got to include literally everyone, right? But those people aren't going to fight you. If you go somewhere and someone wants to fight you, I guarantee that person's been in a fight before, and they're not quite the same as someone that's completely untrained. Yeah, they're not going to be great, but they've been punched before. They punched someone else before, and you don't want to risk fighting ever, ever. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this. What are your thoughts, Joey?
I think there's a really interesting distinction that has to be made here. The statement of like a blue belt would beat 99% of people in the streets is incorrect. What I would say is true is a blue belt could beat 99% of the people on the streets. There's a big difference between could and would. I mean, like, I could maybe beat Brock Lesnar. I know how to do a heel hook. It's a chance it happens. Most likely it won't, but the possibility does exist. Like, there's a possibility with a blue belt against most people that, he gets a takedown, he gets on top and does mount control things, finishes with punches or a choke. Doesn't mean that's gonna happen every time. And like you said, like, avoid fights, because just because you could beat someone doesn't mean you would beat someone. Like, the best people in the world lose. Things happen, like, I know a lot of people watch MMA and they think that like there's not consequences to this stuff, but there is. Like, even the best MMA fighters lose sometimes. Like George St. Pierre, one of the best ever, has lost twice, has been knocked out, has been submitted. These guys could beat him. It doesn't mean they would, but they could. Even the best guy in the world. So, like, you got to be aware of that when you say, like, I would beat these people in a fight. You mean you could beat them in a fight, not you would.
Yeah, as a blanket statement, I disagree with it as well. You could have a 65-year-old blue belt that just got their blue belt. So they are in this analogy, and they could go against a 6'4" ex-hockey player that knocks the shit out of him in about 5 seconds, before he has the time to even start to think about a takedown. So yeah, I disagree with that statement. I think we have, as a blue belt, I think I have a better chance than somebody who has never trained, but I don't think I could take 99% of people on the street for sure.
Yeah, and then look at who is going to be provoking the fights, trying to start fights. These people might have knives and guns and stuff like that, or friends. They might be like
mentally unstable.
Yeah, mentally unstable on substances that numb their pain receptors and stuff like that. There's so many factors, and again, because I think it's so important, we need to differentiate too, that who is going to try to fight you on the streets. Again, it's not the grannies, it's not the unintimidating people. It's the people that actually can cause issue. And a cool quote I heard, maybe it's slightly irrelevant, but a cool quote I heard is that in a knife fight, the loser dies in the alley and the winner dies in the hospital, because like
you're both getting stabbed.
You're both getting stabbed, and you're both gonna bleed quite a bit, and probably whoever got stabbed in like the worst places to bleed out the quickest is gonna die. But the other person still got stabbed. There can be a lot of stabbings in a short fight, so you just never want to ever put yourself in a position where anything could go wrong. Just never fight, you know? And I know all our listeners understand that because we talked about that multiple times for sure. But we got to send out more reels and verticals for TikTok and Instagram, just reminding people, don't fight. You know, there's no point of having this confidence, especially false confidence a lot, because we can talk about this forever, but I don't think jiu-jitsu is going to be your best bet unless it does go to the ground. But like wrestling, if you can wrestle someone, you dictate where the fight goes. Probably one takedown is going to like knock the person out, and which you don't want to do either, because now you could be going to jail, right? So, but yeah, wrestling is like overpowered, and also because the people that do wrestling are just badasses. Just the reality, they take their conditioning seriously, their sport seriously. Like, I would not want to fight like a D1 wrestler, that's for sure, in a street fight. You know, I like my chances, but their chances are good too. They're very skilled in what they're doing, so it's not something I want to take any risk whatsoever there, for sure. There's
many videos on the internet you can watch of a wrestler taking a guy and slamming him on concrete, and that's it. It's over. Game over.
Because I've been talking to Nikki a lot about this too. I just think that the human body is actually super fragile and weak. Like, it does not take much to do bad damage to our bodies. Like, a blow to the head can be so bad, you know? And like, just in general, yeah, it's just, our bodies can't take that much. So, you know, thank God there's a ref in an MMA fight, and they stop it after, you know, the person goes unconscious. And I hate when I see fights after the refs, or after the guy's already knocked out, because like those punches are so damaging and can really kill someone. I remember I saw, it was a slam. It was Jordan Levitt slammed, I forget the guy's name. He was like a journeyman, kind of like a legend in the sense he's been fighting a long time, but he slammed him, and I thought he was dead, like legit. I was actually worried for him when I saw it. I was thinking maybe MMA is a little bit too brutal for me, and I've loved MMA forever, but when I saw that slam, it was just like, this guy has been unconscious for minutes. You know, this is not good for his brain. You know, how's his brain going to be in the future with CTE and all this stuff? And I didn't like watching that. I felt super uncomfortable. Knockouts themselves are fun to watch, but you always got to feel bad for the person that gets knocked out. It's so bad for their body, and it's so bad for their whole lives and everything, you know? So yeah, I don't like that. But, you know,
no, I think we have to be honest about it too. Like, the UFC is the place where these guys have the most protections, the most like talented fighters who should be the best at defending themselves. But I think people are kidding themselves if they think at some point, if the UFC continues, someone's going to die in the octagon. It's going to happen. Someone's going to get slammed on the head or hit in the wrong way. Someone will die. It will happen. This is a fight. Things can happen. The human body is weak. Like, your neck's not that strong. If you get slammed on the back of your head, you could die. There's been MMA fighters who've died in the hospital after fights. There's been boxers who've died after fights. This is dangerous. And I think a lot of people get a false sense of security because they watch people do this on a semi-padded floor with a referee there to protect them when people are wearing gloves, and there are rules to try and stop punches to the back of the head and things that are deemed dangerous. People get a false sense of security about how safe they are. And it's like, a fight is real, and those consequences can be forever. Like, Mike, you mentioned videos of wrestlers like slamming people on concrete. If you're the wrestler and you slam a guy in the concrete and he dies, you're going to jail, buddy. Like, that's it. Like, you made a mistake probably over a fight you didn't have to take. You know, you probably could have not fought a guy or slammed him into the concrete, and your life is ruined.
Yeah, exactly. Just never worth it, you know? So let's take another comment. So this person's saying, when people call jiu-jitsu the gentle art, that kind of, they don't really like that. They don't think it's the gentle art. They don't agree. They're saying, sitting here with a broken rib, 2 ribs of pop cartilage, and twisted neck. So this person says, my man, tap early, tap often. I mean, it's not always, tapping can't always prevent rib injuries. I would say that in most cases, if not like all, rib injury isn't going to be caused by submission. It's probably going to be caused by like people's weight falling on you, or someone, you know, just too heavy of a pressure and side control and stuff like that. You know, I think that it can be the gentle art if you roll like flowy, but yeah, I wouldn't really call it the gentle art either. It's like, yeah, it's not quite the gentle art when someone's like stacking the crap out of your neck or whatever, or whatever they're doing. It's like, yeah, I don't remember it being gentle. So like, for example, like Darren, I love Darren. He's a very technical, great dude, but his jiu-jitsu is painful. It's just, there's just no way about it. Like, Darren, this hurts. He's not like he's okay. I want to clarify. He's not being aggressive. He's not doing dick jitsu either. It's just like his style is so grindy. So like if he gets you in side control, it's just like he just grinds the shit out of your arm until it's like eventually gone, like separated from your body. But the whole experience is so painful. I never experienced it in my life before. Yeah. Right. So I would say like his jiu-jitsu is not the gentle art. But then, I mean, you know, I guess you could say, because I think I have like a very opposite style to him, where I don't think people feel much pain rolling with me, just because I'm so like more like dynamic. And one style isn't better than the other. So I'm not saying like, oh, like mine's better or anything, but yeah, I guess it depends on your style. I guess that's what I'm kind of trying to say. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Dude, when I was Darren's Uki, whenever I'm his Uki, I have to whisper to him, hey man, can you ease up a bit? Because like, holy shit, it feels like my bones are going to explode. And I know he's not trying to hurt me or not trying to put on, it's just the way he does jujitsu. Everything hurts. And he's, like you said, he's not being a dick about it either. But fuck, man, it's brutal. But anyways, about this, the gentle, I think it can be the gentle art, because you can put somebody to sleep. You can make them stop by just extending their arm. You don't have to break it. It's not like a concussive blow to the head, like in boxing or in MMA, or taking a shin to the dome. You can end the fight with rear naked choke, and gently, I guess. So yeah, a little bit gentle.
I think it's kind of like, for our conversation earlier, like, what are we comparing it to? Like, when people say they're not good at jiu-jitsu, like, what are you comparing it to? Is it gentle compared to boxing? Yeah, probably, because I'm not whacking another dude in the head. Is it gentle compared to checkers or chess? No, not really. It's a lot less gentle than that. So like, are you comparing it to other fighting sports? In which case, yeah, I guess it is kind of gentle in a way. It's definitely more gentle than wrestling or judo, where you're just smashing human bodies into the ground nonstop. So in a way, yeah, I guess. Again, it comes down to what you're comparing it to.
Yeah, exactly. If there was like two sports you could never say it's the gentle art, I would say wrestling and judo are that for sure. I would never, wrestling and judo are great, but I would never want to belong to a wrestling or judo club at the age I'm at now, which is only 32, but like, I don't want to be thrown around like I feel too old in the sense, like I've been there, done that. I don't want to be thrown around anymore. It hurts. So, but for those that do enjoy it, you know, all the power to you, but it's definitely hard on your sport body, are these takedowns for sure.
That's why I'm always glad when you use me for the Uki, when you're doing throws, that you're gentle with me, because I'm creeping up on 50 here, and these bones, they're not going to be, they separate easy. They break very easily. You know what I mean? And I had one guy, just on the same subject we were talking about earlier, I had one guy online tell me that there's no way you can get a concussion with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I argued that you can 100% get a concussion. You can get a concussion from water skiing, for Christ's sakes, just bouncing up and down, right? You know, subconcussive blows and stuff like that. But you can 100% get a concussion from anything, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not even a question, like what kind of statement is that? I know someone that well, first off, let's just say everyone's been hit in the face before. We all know that a concussion is possible, but like I one of my friends, she got kneed in the head, and like the hematoma she had was just the biggest I ever seen in my life. It was insane, and she had a really bad concussion for months. And you know, that kind of scared me a little bit. I'm like, because I take my brain very seriously, because I am very worried about, I used to spar hard back in the day. And, you know, that's one reason I don't want to do MMA that much now, is I don't want to take more blows to the head. So yeah, that's something that always scares me, blows to the head. So when I saw her, so damaged from it, I was like, oh shit, like this can happen to me. But I've only seen something happen that bad in that case. But I have known other people to get concussions, but that was definitely the worst case. But Joey, have you seen anyone have any really bad concussions? Have you experienced any yourself?
I don't know if I've experienced any from jiu-jitsu. I've had them like a bunch from other sports. So I am always kind of like worried about it, because like you said, like I care about my brain. I would like to be able to be functional later in my life and not have my brain become like mush just because I abused it too hard early in my life. But I have definitely seen some in jiu-jitsu, you know, like things happen. Two people scramble and try and come up at the same time. You collide heads. Like that's a good way to get a concussion, is to smack your head into another person's head. Like, I've seen it. It happens. Maybe they're not as bad or violent as the concussions you get in other sports, but it's definitely silly to think that it can't happen.
I've definitely had my bell rung and saw stars. Like, I don't know if that's a concussion when you're seeing sparks of light after you get a blow to the head, because I've had that happen to me.
It's definitely not good.
Yeah, it's not good.
It might not be like a full-fledged concussion, but definitely not good. So anytime you have like stars or a headache or anything like that, it's not a good sign. Not in the sense that like you did like irreversible, terrible damage, but yeah, anything to your brain is bad. Any little hit, like even like like if you were to go to like a metal concert and like
headbanging,
or even you just do it at your home and just listen to music, whatever, right? But like that's not good. I try to limit any kind of motion that way myself, because that's what causes a concussion, is your brain rattling within your skull. So your skull is hollow with the brain inside. It's not completely what's I guess tight in a sense. So if it gets depending on where you get hit in your head, it's going to rattle the brain, and then your brain's like, I don't want to deal with this. This is not good. Turns right off. So, which probably isn't the best response either. In a lot of situations, right? We've talked about it before, and yeah, like just the same thing about peeing and pooping yourself. And people were telling us, we already knew, it's like a biological response. I already knew that. Just like, but like, why? Why does our body want to do that? That was more my question. And the same thing with like knocking yourself out, like, or your body turns itself off. Like, I just don't know if that's always the best option from your body. Like, wouldn't your body be like, I should probably stay awake right now so I can get out of here? But I'm not a biologist. Maybe Joey, maybe you know why. I don't know.
From what I've like read and what I understand is like that reaction is basically your body's way of stopping you from doing whatever activity got you whacked in the head hard enough to warrant that response. So like if you were in a fight, like the brain shuts off because it wants to stop you from continuing to take that kind of damage. And like you get other things like, in a car crash, like this is anecdotal obviously, but like unfortunately people who are like really inebriated in car crashes actually tend to have a relatively high survival rate because your body goes limp, and you're less likely to suffer like extreme whiplash and other like injuries like that, like traumatic injuries. Like sometimes your body shutting itself off is actually its way of trying to protect you from like getting rigid and having worse damage done, or continuing to do whatever it was that should have shut you off.
That makes sense. If only you could shut off the other person's brain. You know what I mean? Like for fighting, like that'd be more helpful right now. But obviously we're limited in what our bodies and brains can do. But that'd be a pretty cool feature, right? So let's just take a couple more. This person's saying when people say that training in gi makes your no gi better, they don't agree with that. So I disagree with this entirely, but let me caveat too. So okay, training gi will absolutely make your no-gi better. Training no-gi will make your gi better. Grappling is grappling. Yeah, there's some differences, but it's going to make you better, But is it the most optimal thing to do? If like you want to be only a no-gi grappler, is it beneficial to train in the gi? It can be, it can help you with control and slowing things down, but I don't think it's essential to your progress as a no-gi grappler to train some gi. And same with MMA. I encourage people that are MMA fighters to train the gi too, because a couple of reasons. It's just extra grappling, and then two, it's just a different style and things that can help you, again, mostly control, because you don't have that as much in no-gi. But I mean, you could argue too, just spending more time in no-gi, focusing on your control there is like more beneficial for your time. So I don't think there's any I don't think you could definitively say either way, but you definitely can't say that it, I think you can't say either way if it makes your jiu-jitsu better than, or if it's the optimal way. But yeah, I think that like doing gi is going to make your no-gi better. Doing no-gi is going to make your gi better. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like just doing grappling will make you better. Like gi has its own advantages. I mean, like if you can escape side control in the gi, you should be able to escape side control in no-gi much easier. There's less things for the guy to hold you down with. Like it should translate well. Obviously, like if your whole gi practice is you trying gi chokes, maybe that's not the best use of your time if you're trying to get better at gi. But I know you and I both have games that are pretty easy to like translate between the two. Like it's not hard to turn a back take in gi into a back take for no gi. It's really similar skills. You might have to substitute a grip here or there for something else, but like they're transferable skills. I mean, if I had a hockey player who told me he wanted to get better at skating for hockey, so he was going to do figure skating classes, well, it's not going to hurt. It might not be the absolute peak best use of your time, but it's not going to make you worse. It's going to give you some benefit. It's just about like, do you want to maximize that benefit? If I was only competing in no-gi and that's all I had to do, maybe then, yeah, I might only train no-gi, but like I like competing in both, so I'm going to do both, but I don't look at them as like completely separate entities. There's like probably 95% of them overlap, so it's going to make you better.
Yeah, it's similar to like Lomachenko, boxer. His parents put him in dance while he was a kid because they thought that would help him with his boxing, which I think it did, because he does definitely kind of dances around in there, great footwork. But you know, would he have been one of the greatest boxers of all time having not done that and just boxed during those times? Probably, you know. So what was the best use of time? Maybe in this case, maybe dancing was good because then he, you know, avoids hits to the brain and stuff like that. But it's a very different thing because these actually are two different sports. But I find it kind of interesting, you know, because I posted, we talked about this too last podcast. I posted like, what's better for self-defense, gi or no gi? And there's so many people saying that they're entirely different sports, like gi, and that like gi is like chess and no gi is like checkers. They're entirely different sports. It's like, no, they're not. These are so similar. This is the same sport, just a different outfit. You know, I think you're right in the sense that like 95% of it's the same, and like 5%, you know, maybe more. I don't know, maybe 90. I don't know. The calculations don't really matter, but definitely it's the same stuff, just like different grips and, you know. Yeah, I don't think that it should be differentiated as much as like, I think as lower belts kind of differentiating more. I think like higher belts kind of realize like it's the same stuff. What do you think, Mike?
I just wonder, like, if that's the truth, I'm going to take a devil's advocate. I'll be devil's advocate. Edit this properly. I'm going to be devil's advocate here and say, then why wouldn't a judoka train like a wrestler, and why wouldn't a wrestler train with a judo kimono then?
Just because of the rule set of their sport. So the rules are so different between wrestling and judo and what's allowable and not allowable that you just wouldn't confer any benefit, really. Like, a wrestler will never have to deal with a gi grip. It's just not something they have to deal with. Their upper body grips they're going to experience without a gi are going to be very different. And it's a very hyper specialized sport that way. The same way, like, a lot of judo requires the gi grip. Like, it's not modifiable. It's just, that's what it is. There isn't no gi judo as a sport. Like, a judo person could do no gi and get better at judo, but why would you ever do that for a sport that doesn't even have the no gi option? You would just do the only way to do the sport.
Yeah, you know, I think in your example, because I see both your points, and I think your example, Joey, I think the wrestler benefits more in that situation going with the judo guy than vice versa, because they can still take those grips, but the judo guy can't, right? They can't take their grips. And, you know, I'm sure that there are some examples of like wrestlers that did judo too, either growing up or they added to their thing that it improved their overall game. So I could definitely see it happening a lot more. Like in wrestling, there is like trips and stuff like that. But if you do this stuff from like a judo context and focus, I think your foot sweeps and your uchimatas and stuff like that are going to get better than doing pure wrestling just by itself. So yeah, I can definitely see both your points for sure.
It's also like, I think it should be noted that just because those people don't train in the different modalities, like throwing on a gi or taking off a gi for the judo player, doesn't mean they wouldn't benefit from doing that. One thing you see a lot is people who train primarily gi, that I've noticed as a coach, is when they train no gi, it really helps work on their problem solving skills. So when we train gi all the time, you get really used to like the meta game of what's happening. You know, I'm going to grip here, or I need these grips to do these things. And when you take these things away from these people, you force them to think on the fly and actually problem solve their way through a situation, as opposed to just doing what they always do or using their habits. They're now thinking, and that can really translate well to building new skills in the gi when you have to think through those problems.
I think that's a great way of putting it. I think that's actually how I improve the most now that, you know, I'm a black belt and everything. It's like when I do have to problem solve, you know, when like I haven't experienced something quite like this before. Now I have to think, okay, what should I do in this situation? And then once I figure that out, well, now I know how to deal with them next time, or someone does something like that or similar, next time as well. So problem solving can be such a great way to learn, right? So people that are lower belts, that are wondering if they should do one or the other, I think that's a great point you're making is the problem solving aspect of the gi that sometimes no gi can't provide in the same sense, because you do get so much more tied up and stuff like that. So I think that's a really good point. We'll take two more. It's getting a little long right now, but we'll take too long. So this person's saying, when people say jiu-jitsu is my therapist, they're saying guy who clearly needs a therapist, who clearly needs therapy. I think sometimes people can go a little bit too much. Well, if it's their own feelings, then they can do whatever they want. But sometimes people do get a little like mystical about it. Like jiu-jitsu saved my life, but jiu-jitsu saved a lot of people's lives, like legit. So sometimes people discredit that, and they shouldn't, because even if it saves one person's life, clearly it can save lives. I know Mike has benefited quite a bit from
100%
jiu-jitsu. So
I say this all the time. Jiu-jitsu is my therapy. So I've even told my doctor knows about this. He recommends me to go to jiu-jitsu as much as I possibly can, because he's seen the difference in me since I started. I was a shell of who I am today when I started.
Yeah, and I think we shouldn't discount alternatives to therapy, all the same that we shouldn't discount therapy, because therapy doesn't work for everyone. Jiu-jitsu doesn't make everyone not depressed, but it does make some people less depressed. Is it going to cure it completely? Likely not, but is it going to improve your life? Probably. And with an improved life, usually a lot of that comes with improved mental health, which all kind of goes together. So we can't discount the mental health benefits of it, but we also can't be like, this is a one size fits all. You don't need medication or therapy, just take jiu-jitsu, right? But sometimes for some people, medication doesn't work either, right? So, and for a lot of people, just having people to hang out with, physical sport to do, just all the benefits of it, is going to be enough for them to live a better life. And, can you cure depression entirely? Well, can therapy cure it entirely? Maybe in some cases, but for many, it doesn't cure it entirely. Same with medication, not entirely. I think these things need to be approached from multiple different angles to really find out what's the root cause of your unhappiness and your depression and everything to make you better, right?
See, for jiu-jitsu, it opened up so many more doors socially for me too. I was the guy that stayed at home all the time, 24/7. I'd never left the house. I had no friends. So when I went to jiu-jitsu, not only did I get exercise, I got self respect. I didn't talk to anybody. So I met friends. I have a social circle now. So it was the gap. It filled the gap that I had.
Yeah.
It just changed so many things for me.
I think that's the main benefit I experienced as well, because, I'm not, and especially I wasn't the most social person. So like just being in this setting where, especially as a higher belt and instructor, people, they respect you and they take you serious, and they're, what you have to say and all that kind of stuff. And it just means a lot to me, because like I was so scared and nervous to talk to anyone in the past, like before I started jiu-jitsu, and it really helped me realize that people are generally very similar. They just want to be happy. Most people aren't assholes. Most people just want to see you progress and all that stuff together. So it kind of showed me what like real life is and how people actually are, because if you've only experienced, like before I started jiu-jitsu, that was like, I only had like high school, and then, started working at Walmart for a bit, and then I started jiu-jitsu. But at that time, I felt like people were scary. I felt like, everyone's an asshole kind of out to get me. And jiu-jitsu opened my eyes. It's like, no, people are pretty chill, and we all share common interests. So I can't explain enough how jiu-jitsu has benefited my life and, my mental health, everything. And I make a living from it. So it's just incredible, the benefits I've had from it. So let's take one more. And let me see. They're saying anal isn't gay if you're wearing a gi. I don't even know what they mean by that. Like, why would that factor in? So guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast today. I could feel like a little bit tired today, but I hope you guys still had a great episode, and we'll see you guys next time.